Hi, Emma. Thank you for joining me on the podcast today.
Hello, Andy. Thank you very much for having me.
It's a pleasure. You and I have obviously known each other for a long time, Emma. You were one of the original mastermind members on the program that I ran with Jade, and you've done some really, really, really great stuff and recently shared another case study for us inside the HMO roadmap, which I would love to talk about today. But I can't believe that this is the first time you've been on the show in the sort of 4 years. So I feel like we have got so much that we could actually discuss
I know.
today.
It's been a long time. Like when I think back to when we first started sort of networking and connecting and working together on the mastermind, how quickly our business has grown, for one. The different person that I am now, the systems and processes in place, everything we've learned, the size of projects we're doing. It's phenomenal to think like it's only been really a few years, hasn't it?
It
Like
has.
it's crazy. So yeah, lots to discuss.
Absolutely. Well, I think your journey and everything that you're doing is both really, really inspiring and also really interesting. And, I know, and I'm sure we're going to talk about this today, that it hasn't been easy at times as well. That's, the nature of building these sorts of businesses.
Yeah.
But Emma, for anyone listening today that perhaps hasn't come across you yet, tell us a little bit about yourself and Dan and Stylish Living, what it all looks like now and where it all began.
Okay, where do I begin? Okay, so Stylish Living is our brand. That's our public facing company. We try to encompass our mantra, I guess, which is build a lifestyle you love. And that comes across in everything from it starts within the core of the business. So ultimately, as a mum of two, we've got two children, Freddie, who's 7, Amelia, who's 5. Having that lifestyle element is really important to me, that I want to be a present mum, but I want to be active. I want to be able to take the kids on multiple holidays, multiple experiences. And I just need that time and flexibility. I've got that now. I'm the mum that's dropping the kids off every day at school. I'm picking them up every day. I'm working in between. I'm juggling it all, but I'm making it happen. And I'm there for all the important moments of the kids. So ultimately, that lifestyle element is fundamental. We then bring that across in the actual properties and the design and the way that we put our properties together for our tenants and also our guests, because we do a lot of service accommodation. But I'm sure we'll come to that later. But essentially, Stylish Living, we're a family-run business first and foremost. It started, it was at the end of 2018. My now husband, Dan, who I run the business with, and I were both at a bit of a crossroads. We'd not long had Freddie. I think Freddie was just coming up to 1 year old. And my previous background, I worked in marketing. So before I'd moved back home to Leicestershire, I was working in London and Birmingham a lot. And I was dealing with like multi-million-pound marketing budgets. So I loved my job and, I really did. But then I kind of moved back home. I decided to go freelance. And I think after a couple of years of doing that, although it was all right and I was earning good money, I had more flexibility and not having to do that dreaded commute to London every day, I wasn't happy. And I think when I had Freddie, I just realised that I didn't want to go back to that corporate world. Dan was similar. He'd always been involved in building. His dad was a property developer. He'd been brought up on building sites. He was a brickie by trade. He did bricklaying at 16 when he left school. So he'd always had that experience of sort of managing multiple sites. And we just knew that we wanted to do something different, because I think anyone who's had their first child, that your priorities just change as soon as you have that baby to look after. And we just knew we wanted to do something different. And naturally, my background and expertise is project management, it's marketing, it's business. I'm very creative, but also quite analytical. So I've got those sort of skills. Stick me with an Excel spreadsheet and a marketing calendar and I'm happy. Dan, on the other hand, has a completely different skill set. He's a builder by trade. He's in person managing all of the different contractors. And I think that obviously naturally as well, I had a side interest in interior design, which is obviously naturally what most women love to do. So we just kind of put those two together and we decided to start up our own property company and get into property development. And then Stylish Living was born.
And here we are now.
So our first project, we bought a 3-bed terrace property. We bought it for 145,000. We converted it into 5 HMO rooms. They all had an ensuite. But at that time, we weren't doing studios. We weren't doing kitchenettes. It was just your bog standard 3 rooms upstairs, 2 rooms downstairs, and a communal kitchen lounge. We got that refinanced at £350,000. And I think at the time, we spent something like £90,000 on it. So for our first deal, it was all money out. And again, we used an angel investor for it. So again, we started the business with none of our own money. So we had an angel investor on it. We did the typical buy a property on bridge finance, do the works, add the value, get it refinanced, pay the investor back. And I think, I can't remember the exact figures because it was about 7 years ago, but I'm sure we made about £40,000 money out on our first deal. We were like, whoa, there's something really magical here. Let's do this again. And that's how we began. So we've gone from doing a 5-bed HMO to now we're currently doing a new build conversion with a 3 million budget, which is 26 studios. And that's in 6.5 years.
So things have moved so incredibly quickly for you guys. I mean, thinking back to when you guys sat and made that decision initially to do this, to build the property business, was it scary? I mean, do you remember how it felt at the time?
I think it was, we didn't know what we were doing. Like anyone who starts up in property, you know, we didn't know what we were doing. There was so much to it. And we still, till this day, have a running joke in our small agency team that we always say every day is a learning day, because every single day a new problem comes up, a new issue, a new learning, whether it's a tenant issue or a guest issue, through to the steel that's been measured wrong and it's been delivered on site and installed, and then we have to take it all out again. We have come across every kind of issue you can imagine. We've probably come across from financing to, I could name 1,000 things, but I think what we've learned, and the biggest learning that I have took away from this in these nearly 7 years, is that there is actually a solution for everything. And that's what I continually tell myself. I mean, in the beginning days, I had obviously a toddler in tow. Soon after we had Freddie, we got pregnant with our second child, Amelia. So I actually was running this new business with no maternity leave. I had children climbing on me, children constantly crying in the background while I'm trying to do my meetings. I'm trying to kind of learn it as I go and make this business a success. Oh, and then when my first daughter, my second child, was born, she was born in November 2019, then COVID hit. So not only did we have a brand new business that was a couple of years old, 2 children under the age of 2, we just completed on our nightclub project, and then we went into lockdown. And you can imagine, everybody knows anyone who's around at that time, which is pretty much everyone, but you can imagine how much more stressful that was with 2 young children, your biggest project to date, going into lockdown, not being able to work. And back then it was a really worrying and stressful time, to say the least. But we overcame it all and delivered something really special.
Well, we're going to talk about that. And I remember, the challenges that time, that project, and the combination of that bad timing brought for you guys. But it's really interesting to hear you talk about those early days running the business, because I think that there is still this misconception that for some people, the people who end up making it quite successful, it somehow started easily.
Absolutely not. You know, when you go to one of these property events and it's like passive income, make all your money from property, it's just the biggest lie. I can't even explain like how much work it's taken to even get in a remote, like systemized process with our business. Because again, as well as so just to take it back a bit, my husband is a builder, so we have our own building company that we set up at the start. So we build and develop all of our own properties. We have our own maintenance team, which helps us retain a lot of control with the costs and the delivery, which really does help us, because we have at least 3, our average is 3 projects on the go at any one time. We like 4, but at the moment we've got 3 because we've got such a large one in the background. But so if we have 4 projects on the go, if you can imagine you're doing that with multiple build teams, you completely have no control. So I think that's probably a testament to how we've been able to build our unit delivery so fast. But we quickly realized after the delivery of the first HMO unit, we were using a third party to manage it, like a letting agency. And I just quickly realized that their level of service, the level of quality, their productiveness, any urgency to fill my void was just not there at all. And you know what it's like, if at that time we had 5 rooms. If one of them's empty, there goes your profit. And again, being on maternity leave, every single pound counts, doesn't it? Like, we weren't working, we went full in. We probably really should have carried on working and built it up on the side, but we just jumped in feet first and worked out as we went. But we quickly realized that the agents in our area just weren't delivering it to a standard that I wanted my portfolio to be managed. So we actually set up our own letting agency at the same time as well, only to manage our own. We don't manage other people's. And that in itself, when I look back, I think now, what on earth were we thinking to set up a letting agency as well? I mean, Look, we've still got it now. We make really good money on it, and we retain control. We're pretty much always at 100% occupancy because we have full control. We have the full processes and everything, and it worked out well. But just back then, yeah, I think we just had that mindset. We just had a vision that how we wanted stylish living to be. We wanted the tenants to have the best service. We wanted the build to be delivered to the highest standards. We wanted to do everything like as quick. That's the project management in me. I wanted to deliver everything to the best standards as quickly as possible while, managing the budgets and trying to make profit as we went. And that's while obviously having that lifestyle element. And I think by bringing all of those elements together, and again, I think maybe the marketing background in me, by always working for a marketing agency, I always wanted my own agency. I didn't necessarily, when I was at university, think I'd want a property development agency, but here we are. And now we sort of invest, we manage all the sourcing, we do the development, we do the design, and then we do all of the management and everything after. So we do retain full control of sort of the project from start to finish now. And
so those are the different facets, are they, Emma? You've got your own portfolio, and a lot of that is stuff that you buy and you develop yourselves.
Yes.
Then you've got the agency, which caters for all your tenants and making sure that your properties are managed well and stay full. And then you've got a third-party service where you actually find and acquire properties and projects for people.
Yeah, so essentially, the investment element, I'm the person that sources all of the deals. We don't use a third party to source. I will do that, in your standard way. Typically, I do have a good relationship with our agents because we have our own building company. We do invest in our area where we live. So we're Midlands based. So all of our properties are in the Midlands. We haven't yet ventured out. When we do, then we will obviously have to change our model slightly and look to maybe work with more localized contractors. I'm not sure. But for now, everything we've done has been within the Midlands, which has enabled us to do the development ourselves. And I think, yeah, it's been quite a big learning curve, to say the least. But from the being able to source deals, build those relationships with the agents has been really important to us. And then I will manage. I have a fantastic broker. Like, my broker has been absolute testament to our success. I mean, I was listening to one of your podcasts the other day where you talk about having that broker, those power team, those members, that has been critical to us because it's really helped my learning. My broker's been doing it he's been in the industry, he's a little bit older, but he's been doing it for a few decades, shall we say. So he's got very good experience. Every project we've done, I'm constantly learning from him. So I think that's been testament. We have a great team of architects, again, and every project we do, we're just trying to absorb all of their knowledge and their expertise and their information. And then, once we get the keys, I'll then pass that over to my husband, Dan, who will then go ahead and manage the development with the support of the architects and any structural engineers. We have our own quantity surveyor, which happens to be Dan's brother. So on our larger projects, we've got another level of expertise that's kind of feeding in because our projects keep getting bigger and bigger. So as the business grows, we bring in that level of expertise to obviously help mine and Dan's knowledge grow. And I think then that's how we've obviously been able to scale. And then, once Dan develops the project, it used to be just me, but now I have my portfolio manager, my property manager who help, and we'll go in and furnish the properties, style them, get the photographers in, and then they'll manage the rentals and all the guests if it's service accommodation. So it is a full service, like from start to finish, that's all managed in-house, mainly with me overseeing it, but then with everybody else managing their key area.
Well, I mean, it certainly does sound like a full service thing that you guys have got going on. And, and it's not difficult to see why, Emma, that you've got so many great relationships with these key people, that, your personality and your work ethic. And I just think you as a person, that's always been one of your strengths, and sort of pulling people in, to take an interest in what you're doing. And I think it's so important in this game, isn't it? Because the people that are responsible for kind of making all these different facets work, without them, none of this is possible. And I think the reality of developing and investing, especially in property, is there is so much to do and so much to think about and so much specialist attention that it's needed for things. You quite literally can't do it independently, can you?
Absolutely. And I think there's two parts of that. So there is, and again, this is just learning from the years. It's definitely working with the right people, that from not just from a relationship aspect, because you naturally need to be able to get on with them, because especially if you're going to be doing it for the foreseeable future, you need to have a good working relationship with people. That's, business 101, isn't it? You don't work with people you don't get a good energy or a good vibe from, because it's just not going to end well. It's employing the right people with the right level of expertise for the project. But I just want to say, on the flip side of that, it hasn't always been easy. We've not just worked with the same people from the start. We have had to terminate relationships, shall we say, with many people over the years. And that has been, we've had to get rid of solicitors, different architects that probably weren't able to deliver what we wanted, multiple of people on our contract team, excuse me, with our builders team, people have let us down and not delivered to the right level of service. And we've had to have, very difficult decisions to make and discussions to have to be able to get to the position where we're at now. And I think as well, I know people would probably recognize it as a power team. The power team that we had at the start, the only person who is the same person is my broker. And I was just so fortunate to find him because he's more than a broker. He's more of a mentor to me. And because our projects get larger and larger, there's things I don't know. There's a lot of things I don't know, especially when it comes to, the planning elements. And we've recently completed our first mixed use property. So the lending when you're doing the refinance is completely different to the normal commercial to residential that we've done. So again, it's tapping into his expertise to make me a proper investor, learning about, the different yields of how a retail unit is valued when you're doing your commercial refinance. I didn't know that. And he helped me understand it. And then we also have great valuers. That is another member of the power team. We've always managed to work with the same commercial valuers from the start. So we have a fantastic relationship with them. So that helps because I do all the sourcing myself. I can look at a property now and it'll be, I don't know, we were looking at, say, an old cinema, for example, not so long ago. I can look at that and be like, right, the top floor could be apartments, the bottom floor could be 12 studios. We could split it this way and this way. I know roughly how much the bill costs are going to be because we have that control. I know roughly how much the values will be at, but it's a new area. So again, before we even sort of submit our offer, I've got people such as valuers that I can help run past my own analysis to sort of sense check it for me, which really helps when you get in the bigger projects and the new locations. And then when those figures sort of come in at the point of we then instruct the bridge finance and we get as far as doing the valuation, because I've done so much groundwork and analysis in the background, 9 times out of 10, my valuations that I estimate it's going to be, they're pretty much slap bang. I always have to go a little bit higher with the value because they love to knock me down a little bit, but that's just the game they like to play. But typically speaking, I know where we're at now in what we do. And I think that's definitely been testament to working with the right people, but having the relationship element, being able to go out for lunch with people who are, quantity surveyors, brokers, lenders, and just asking those questions and getting that off the record sort of information to steer our learnings has definitely been testament to how we've been able to scale the size of our project so quickly. It's not being afraid to ask questions as well.
Yeah, and I think one of the realities is that a lot of this does just come with a bit of time and a bit of experience. It's really difficult when you're just starting. First of all, to even know that this is all the stuff that you might need to know or have in place, but then to actually find the right people and get that team and that structure right the first time. For very few people, I'm not sure I've ever seen an example where that's been the case. It takes time to build those relationships. And like you said, you've got to separate some wheat from the chaff and keep trying to progress as a team and get better over time. As an investor and as a developer, the same. I mean, just rewinding a little bit, Emma, in those earlier stages, are there any things that really stick out, the real growing pains? You mentioned finance as one of them, setting up all these businesses.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, just another point that's coming to head, it's like during those years, I really struggled with my mental health during one stage. We were juggling so much. I think we had multiple deals that were, especially during COVID times, we had, let's say the 12-month project at 18 months, the materials had tripled in cost. There was a shortage of materials. We had investors that would due their money back. We had all those sort of issues that kind of crop up, as well as future issues where we've had commercial developments where everything that could have gone wrong went wrong in terms of we were burgled and vandalized and all of the copper pipe work for 8 apartments and 3 retail units were ripped out. And then it took 6 months to claim on the insurance because of certain issues. And all of these delays just cost you tens of thousands of pounds. So there's been lots of times where I've, again, been a new business without having a team in place. We were managing stuff that maybe a team of 10 should have been doing. It was on me. But again, I think the things that have helped me as well is moving on about surrounding yourself with the right people. I've always had a mentor. I've always been involved in masterminds from the start. Obviously, like you said, the first time we met, when I first started the business, I was part of your mastermind, which really helped us. I've always had a mentor. So Jade from B Space, obviously I've had a really good relationship with her. She's been there since the beginning as well. And I think as a starting point, having someone such as yourself or Jade or somebody like that you can tap into just to get that level of expertise has been absolutely critical, because there's been so many times when realistically, me and Dan, my husband, always say we shouldn't still be going the amount of stuff we've had to get over and go through. But we kept going, and times were so hard. Times when we've like, we don't see a way out of this. Like, we're going to lose the project. We can't pay the investor back. But we've always sort of found a solution. All of our investors have always been paid back. I think all of our deals have been all money out, apart from one that might have left like £20,000 in or something. And that's because of a delay that it went over the time. So the interest we were paying. But ultimately, I don't think we would have been able to continue to the level we have without having those relationships, those right people to kind of fall back on and help and get the advice and sort of tap into. And it's always been, like I say, when we started, although I did have a project management and a marketing background, property, absolutely nothing. In the world of bridge finance, refinance, commercial valuations, tenants, everything that falls into property, even stamp duty and tax. I think I'd only really bought one house. My house a couple of years prior to when we started the business was my only, and I was a first time buyer then. So it was only a small house. I didn't have any of that experience. And yeah, it's definitely surrounding yourself with those right people to support you, especially during the hard times when you think you want to walk away and you think there's no other option and you're like, whoa, I've done too much.
Well, I think that this is another thing that you're talking about as well, Emma, and it's a certain amount of resilience that I think you just need. I've learned this as well. Business is quite easy when things are going well, but actually doing good business is about how you manage things when it's not going well. And as an investor and a developer and an owner of companies like yours, you tend to find yourself at the bottom of a funnel, and the worst problems filter their way through to you. And some of them are pretty serious problems, like mentioned repaying investors and valuations and projects being significantly delayed. And it's very, very difficult at times. But I think I love bringing people like yourself on the show, Emma, because that very honest, unfiltered experience, I think, is so important. And the reality is, no matter what we do and what we learn, there is a point at which we have to take that leap, isn't there? We have to just do it and accept that it's probably not going to be perfect. What can I do to try and reduce the risks?
That's why I've still not got a website live, because I'm so much of a perfectionist. But I think as well, all of our projects have had an element of risk. We are risk takers. We try to be calculated risk takers now. We have made mistakes. One of our biggest learning curves, we were trying to buy a large commercial building a couple of years ago. This was probably one of the toughest times I've ever had in business and in life. We'd already done a lot of the planning work. We spent a lot of money on architects. It was going to be our biggest project at the time. Very long story short, it was a mixed-use building and we're very close to completing. We got the valuation that we needed. It was the GDV was like over 2 million. We had all the bridge lending set up. We'd done all the legals. We'd done all the plans, the construction. We were ready to go to hit the ground running. We'd invested a lot of money into it. And the solicitors had missed something. It was because there was leases involved in the ground floor of the building. And again, leases isn't something I have never, ever been involved in. It's completely above anything I would understand. So you naturally trust a solicitor who's a commercial solicitor to be able to do this in your interest. That's what you pay them for, right? They're there to deal with it. Anyway, the solicitors had done all of their reports. Everything was fine. They reviewed the leases. Like, everything was done and passed to the lender. We were the day, it might not be the day before completion, but we were certainly within the week before the completion. And somebody, whether it was I think it was the lender's solicitor doing the final checks, picked up on an issue with the lease. And it basically meant that we couldn't have built. It was basically, we were trying to build, I can't remember how many it was now, but it was, I don't know, maybe like 20 HMOs or something on the top 2 floors, because it was a really large commercial building. But their lease meant that we couldn't build in the middle, which completely scuppered all of our plans. It meant that the GDV valuation was now invalid, and it all just went completely tits up, shall we say. And it was something that was completely out of our control. I couldn't have picked up on it because I don't have that level of knowledge. And it turned into a really, really big problem for us. We didn't end up completing on the property. We pulled away from it because then the seller was getting annoyed with us and he wanted more money. And then they couldn't get the lease. And it was just a really, really tricky time. It was a big learning curve from us. And we had to sack our solicitor at the time. That was one that we'd worked with from the very beginning, because what became apparent is the solicitor did not have the level of expertise that we needed to do this level of deal. And I think we'd gone from working with this commercial solicitor for our normal HMOs, even like we bought a bed and breakfast and converted it into an 11 bed. That was fine because it was quite a standard transaction. But then all of a sudden we've took another leap and we're going to the next big where we're buying these huge, beautiful, big commercial mixed-use buildings. And all of a sudden they did not have the level of expertise and we lost out on what could have been a great deal. And it was a massive learning curve for us. And it was really, really hard. It's put a lot of pressure on me mentally. You know, when you work with your husband or your partner or your spouse or your family member, you naturally have a lot of stress between your relationship. It was really, really difficult, but we came through it. We learned from it. We worked out where the gaps were in our expertise and our knowledge because, we weren't going back to do the smaller deals anymore. We were only going to get bigger and better. And we then employed a new solicitor who is absolutely amazing. And you can just see the difference in the quality, because we've since had another mixed-use building that incorporated leases, and we have to have our own leases now because we are now the landlord of retail shops. And just, again, the difference of having the right person for the right project at the right time, that's enabled us to transform our business because we had a gap in our knowledge and expertise. We lost out on the deal. We then changed that, got the right person in the right seat, and now we've got that level of expertise. And again, I can then learn from that person, and then we progress further. But yeah, it was a difficult time to say the least, but it's how you learn from it, how you grow from it, how you minimize your risk, especially if you want to be doing, our sort of ideal project now is we only really do commercial to residential now. That's kind of our niche. We've become a very, strong competitor in that market in our region. Buying those commercial buildings and needing planning is always going to be a risk. We do now have, good relationships with planners that we can have an off the record conversation with. We have obviously our values. We can minimize that risk. It's never eliminated, of course. But I think now, we've got 3 projects currently in legals and 1 that's completed. 1 we bought from auction. It's a commercial building, and we're just working with the architects to finalize which scheme we're going for. But we bought it knowing we will get something. We'll get something. Like, it's fine. It's an old army cadet building on a single floor with a big car park right in a town centre. So we know we'll get something. It was a great price. The schemes we've now designed is either 5 3-bed new build houses, which is great because that'll be our first new build houses that we've done within our company, or a block of 12 1-bed apartments, which we have got experience doing new build apartments. What we're looking at now is obviously we're doing the analysis on the financials, and then we've had an off the record conversation with the planners, so we know sort of where we are in terms of if parking is required and if it's not, and all those sort of answers. And then now it's just for me to kind of maybe take my valuer out for a little cheeky lunch and just run those options by them to get their opinion in terms of what will be worth the most money. And then we'll be ready to submit for planning. So we're taking our time with this one because it's a really nice new build project for us. And we want to make sure everything works in terms of the build cost versus the end value. Everything we've done to date as well, we've never sold. That is a bit of a market that probably scares me a bit because I'm very comfortable with the strategy of buy, refurbish or build, and then refinance to hold. And I think if we did the new build houses, we could refinance them to rent them. But is it going to be worth as much financially as renting all the apartments? Because our strategy is all inclusive, fully furnished. So obviously the apartment. So anyway, it's just a bit of analysis that we're sort of doing on that. But yeah, certainly.
How important is the cash flow, Emma, that you guys have already generated from things like your HMOs when you're now looking at these other slightly different projects that are very capital intensive with a slightly different exit strategy? Would you do those sorts of projects without the HMOs and that sort of cash flow in the background? And I ask you because this is something that I've talked about and I've thought about myself quite a lot. I do similar projects.
Yeah, so I think cash flow management has been one of the most difficult things I've ever had to get my head around. Not only just the cash flow of a deal. So you've got one deal, you need to understand, obviously, you need to know the figures like the back of your hand. You need to know what your different exit strategies are and everything that you teach from the HMO roadmap. But for us as well, because the way our structure is, and again, it's something that they don't teach you at school. They don't teach you in most of these property events you go to. You're actually running a business. Like we have multiple businesses. Stylish Living is, of course, the public brand. That's who we are. But in the background, we have multiple small limited companies that obviously own different properties, different types, different areas, 2 building companies. And I have to oversee all of the financials and everything. So your VAT returns, your tax. We have an accountant doing it, but naturally the bookkeeping element and the project tracking is phenomenal. And I think with the cash flow element, I think the biggest learning for me was just, and the recommendation I tell to anyone that's just starting out is like, get your systems and your processes in place before you even do anything. Because I remember once a few years ago, and again, we've been through about 3 accountants over the years, because they just couldn't grasp what we're doing in terms of like the way the companies are interconnected, the way that we pay ourselves dividends, the way that the one company will have the development finance to pay the building company, because there's so much interconnection. And I remember once the accountants had done their books for the end of the year, and that they weren't doing any like monthly managements or any monthly profit and loss, anything we have now, that we didn't have them back then, because naturally didn't really even know what they were, to be brutally honest. And the accountants came to me and he was like, yes, so this year you've made a loss of £250,000 or something. And I was like, how can we lose £250,000? Because we're in control. We spend what we get, like in terms of the development, we spend what we get. We haven't had £250,000 to lose. Like, how could that be possible? And anyway, ended up with me spending about 12 weeks going back through all of the businesses, all the accounts, to try and pinpoint. Bear in mind, I'm not financially trained. It's probably the thing I hate the most about the business. Got no real zero experience. But I had to go through zero, working it all out, and basically I found the issue myself, because they couldn't tell me. And what they were doing is, because we have building companies, when we get the building companies, say a Travis Perkins will send you an invoice for your order. They were reconciling that as an invoice due, and then we're paying it from the statement. And basically the accountants, who are professionals in what they do, were duplicating all of our spend on projects, which is where the loss came from. So we'd gone from being told that we'd lost £250,000 and thinking our business was going under, to me having to find the issue and then discovering that we'd actually made substantial profit for the year. And that just is another example of the absolute mess I've had to deal with when employing people who are experts in their field. You know, they were an accountant, they had multiple bookkeepers, but they just did not understand property. They didn't understand builds and how it all interconnects. And again, it just goes back to making sure you've got the right person with the right level of expertise to help you, because we've been through so many issues with so many providers and stuff over the years who should have known what they're doing. You put your trust in them naturally. And yeah, it all came to head. And yeah, and then now I am, and again, it's still not perfect, I'd say, because we keep scaling. You know, we've gone from managing a 90,000 budget to one project having a 3 million budget. I'm still trying to find the best way to sort of do that. And especially when you've got multiple projects, trying to track the budget, and we're integrating a few new like project management software systems and stuff now. But again, that's the evolution of what we're doing every month, which we make ourselves a little bit better. It's like atomic habits. You know, if you get 1% better every single day,
that's
look
right,
where you're going to be in 12 months. And that's all we've done. My focus now for the business is, because I head up the project management in terms of the financials and the budget, that's what I'm focused on now. We're pretty slick with our processes, with the lettings and the sourcing and the interiors. All that is pretty good now. But the finances and stuff, as you scale, you always find a new problem, and it becomes a lot more of a beast to manage. But yeah, if someone's starting out, making sure that, you know, you're doing your bookkeeping monthly, you've got someone who knows what they're doing in terms of property. They understand, you know, the stamp duty that can be payable, and your taxes, and if, you know, CIS if you're employing contractors directly. It's endless. It's endless. But
like you said, you're running a business as well as actually developing properties and investing in projects as well. So you have to be able to wear multiple hats. And hearing you talk about systems and processes and people is so great to hear, because I remember several years ago, pre-COVID mastermind, that around that time, you were going through all of that struggle and trying to figure it out and put things in place for the first time.
I think I came in, I was like, yeah, I've decided that we're going to take the lettings management in-house, and we're just doing this. And I think I got my brother in at the time, and we had no experience.
Yeah.
I look back, because like the lettings is so difficult, isn't it? Like, you know what tenants are like there's always issues. Oh my goodness. And I just look back and I just laugh, and I was like, what was I thinking? I mean, it's worked out all right now, but yeah, it's a lot. And you definitely looked at me like, are you sure you want to do that? I was like, yeah, how hard can it be? Whoa, I did not know what I was doing.
I think sometimes, and again, I think back to when I was just getting started, there's some value in a certain degree of naivety, as long as that doesn't cost you too heavily. Sometimes it's best not to know just how bad it can be.
Absolutely. Like now, if you'd have told me 6.5 years ago that I'd be sitting here talking to you from the first mastermind saying, right, you've got two building companies, you've got X amount of business, you own this many properties, your portfolio is worth this amount, and you're running a letting agency, and you've also now run a service accommodation management agency, because we have two letting agencies now. We have the HMOs and we have our service accommodation. We're in a position now where we could scale, we could start to manage landlord portfolios if we wanted to. It's something that maybe, because the cash flow would be good, but does it align with where we want to be with stylish living? I'm not too sure. That's something we're looking at. But with that slick with our processes now, that if a landlord came to me and he had X amount of properties that hit all, and we got on with him and stuff, then we could easily slot it into our management systems because we are that good with it. But it has taken us years and years and a lot of mistakes, a lot of tears to even get anywhere near where our agency is today. But it is definitely we always jump in. We're always like, well, we'll just, element of risk, just work it out as we go along. That's kind of our mantra as well.
I'm conscious of time, but before we wrap up, I want to talk a little bit about your nightclub project.
That's my favourite project. I don't think I'm ever going to do a project that I love as much, but we shall see.
Just before you share anything about this, we've got about 100-ish case studies from community members inside the roadmap now. And this is hands down one of my favourites, Emma. It is so unique in so many ways. And obviously, I felt kind of, to some extent, a part of the project, watching you go through this and sharing that, the projects as you progress through it. But kind of high level, just tell us about what that looks like now. Number of units. I know you've got a couple of different types of units in there, and the gross rent roll, because it's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, sure. So I'll just take it right back to the beginning. So again, we've had it. Yeah, I think we've had it like 3 and a bit years. Is that right? Yeah, 3 and a bit years. So it was actually our first real commercial project. And it was an old nightclub, but it wasn't just a nightclub. It was a nightclub that my husband, Dan, and our family used to go to because it's in our town. It's in our area. So when we saw it, it'd actually been on the market for somewhere along the lines of 2 years. So this building was on the market for 2 years. It was the one that nobody wanted. And when we saw it, obviously our business was growing. We got a bit more confident. We'd been doing these all right projects. We looked at it, and it came with planning permission to create, I think it was 4 extra large, like phenomenal size apartments. And naturally, because we'd started doing HMOs, and by that point we were moving to studios, we just went and looked at it, and we loved it, and we thought, this is so cool. I remember we walked in and it was like a proper nightclub on 2 floors with a dance floor where the DJ used to be the bar, and we were like, yeah, this is wicked. We bought it with the planning in place for the apartment because obviously it was allowed to turn into residential. But as soon as we viewed it, I remember going back home, and I think Freddie was like probably, 2 or something at the time. And I remember getting his crayons off the side with the plans and started literally drawing on what we could do. We're like, right, we could add another floor here. We could split this into HMOs. We could do some apartments here. We can do a dormer extension there. And me and Dan just then started coming up with all these ideas like, wow, this has actually got potential to become a phenomenal project. And then, long story short, we worked with some architects, and so you go up the big stairs. If anyone's ever seen the photos, it's got a beautiful big entrance hall. It's the old club, it's the original club entrance hall where the cloakroom stuff used to be. You go up, and to the right of the building, which is the back, we now have 10 large HMO studios. They're all around 20 square meters each-ish. They're all slightly different, unique, because of the way the buildings are different size. They're all slightly unique in their size, but roughly around, say, 20. We also have what we call like the chill out room. So it's got like a 70-inch flat screen TV, big sofas, and then we've got the communal kitchen. Each room is a studio. So you have a really nice kitchenette in there with all your cupboards, your hobs, your fridge, your sink, your microwave oven, the double bed, the ensuite, all the usual sort of what you'd expect in a very large studio. And then on the other side of the property, which is the front, we created 3 large duplex apartments. So 2 of these so you walk in both of the apartments. Downstairs, you have 2 bedrooms. So one's got king size bed, one's got double, and you've got a bathroom. And then you go up the stairs into a huge open plan kitchen diner, and they both have bifolds onto a rooftop terrace, which is they're really cool to look at, aren't they? They're really, really cool. And then
very cool.
Then at the front of the building, we have a 1 bed, but we have a sofa bed downstairs because we rent all of these out on Airbnb. And that one's flipped the other way because that doesn't have a rooftop terrace. So the bedroom and the ensuite is on the top, and downstairs is a large kitchen. So now, out of that business, we yeah, we bought it. I can't remember the exact figures, but I think we bought it for like 350 grand or something. And then it was valued at just over 1.5 million. The studios now they rent it out for around £1,000 a month each studio. So I think they go for between around 975 is the average. Some of them are a little bit more, some of them a little bit less, but around 975 a month. And that's fully furnished, all inclusive. So that's 10 of those. And then our apartments at the front of the building are service accommodation. So they typically operate around 80% each month. Some months is better, some months is lower, the nature of when it is. But they do perform really well for us. And yeah, it's been one of our most favorite projects because we designed it because it was a nightclub. We wanted to kind of keep that nightclub fun element alive. So at the time we went for a bit of a beach club vibe. So there's lots of bright colors on the wallpaper. There's like palm trees. There's like purple sofas. And it's just a bit of a quirky take on your typical average sort of apartment. And yeah, it's been one of our greatest projects. Obviously, because of the figures on it, it was all money out. And now it just performs really well. Our studios it's one in, one out. People don't often move. We've got really good retention on our tenants. And, typically speaking, someone will hand in their notice. Most people will move for work or they'll go and buy a house because we only deal with professionals. So typically we like to think of ourselves as their last stop before they buy a house, or maybe they might move jobs. So we don't get that high turnover, but when we do, we'll do a viewing day while the tenant's still in situ. They move out, get it clean, and the next person's in. So yeah, it's been our greatest project from a positioning our brand as sort of a bit of a market leader of commercial, but also financially as well.
Well, like I said, to all our listeners today, go and check this product out. I'm looking at the photos now, and it's very, very difficult to do just how incredible this is justice. It is completely unique, and just the numbers high level. Am I right in thinking, Emma, that this nets in the region of about £12,000 a month, this scheme?
Yeah, sometimes more. Obviously, we've got mortgage cost isn't cheap and stuff on it, but we did mortgage. We did a 10-year fixed rate before COVID and before the rates hiked. So we have actually got quite a good mortgage rate on as well.
Yeah.
But at least sort of your 12K net a month.
It's an incredible project. Emma, it's been an absolute pleasure to catch up with you. A real blast, as always. You're a powerhouse of information and an experience and interesting stories. And it's so great to just get such an honest and transparent, unfiltered share from you about what this really, really takes.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you for having me. I feel like we could have talked for hours, couldn't we?
I'm sure we could. And there's so much more that we haven't even touched on yet. But Emma, for anyone who has listened to today's podcast and wants to find out a little bit more about you, about stylish living, about what you're up to, the projects that you've done, how they might be able to get involved, where's the best place to go?
At the moment, it's Instagram, because we have a new website in development. But if you go to Instagram, it's @_stylish living. That's the best place to get hold of me. And then, we'll be launching our new website and a clear view of all our services over the next couple of months.
And some projects that are ongoing at the minute, Emma, that we can keep up to date with, right?
Yes, some exciting ones. So at the moment, one thing we didn't get to discuss, but we're currently doing a new build development. We've partnered with the charity Mind, who are the UK's largest mental health charity, and we are building them a 26 all studio HMO from the ground up. So I'm currently recording a YouTube series on that, and it's going to be really exciting. We've not done any. We're going to launch our YouTube channel and do a bit of a behind the scenes series of everything we've done. And the first kind of series is going to be about this Mind project. We've been recording lots of content from the start. It's nearly 12 months in. I think for anyone wanting to get into commercial property development and learning what we do, that's hopefully will be really insightful. Because like you said, Andy, I like to try and be as transparent and as open as possible because that's how I learn from people. So I'm just repaying the favor. And then personally, we have a new build site, which is either going to be 5 houses or a block of 12 apartments. We're just in legals for a large commercial development that's going to be an 18-bed HMO. And more excitingly, we're actually building our own home. So we've just got planning permission on our own home. So that's going to be on its own Instagram account. It's @Stylish Living Home. And that's going to be our first, it's our family home. So we've bought a 3-bed cottage in the countryside that we've just got planning to convert into a 5-bed house. So there's going to be a pool, jacuzzi. I'm going big on this one because we're actually going to live there. So if you're looking for any home inspiration as well as commercial, I'm
just looking for an invitation, Emma. So
absolutely. It's only a matter of time before Stylish Living pool parties was a thing, wasn't it?
Plenty for us all to keep up to speed with there, I'm sure. Emma, thank you again. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Andy. Take care. Speak soon.